The human mind is an interesting machine. Its main role, or its main focus, is focused on making sure that you are surviving. Now, when it comes to intimacy and sex and pleasure, there are three emotions that block your arousal and kill your libido completely, which are shame, guilt, and fear. Having clarity on how these three emotions run very deeply. Many times we are completely unaware of them running the show. So bringing the light into the darkness will already create a massive shift. Now, guilt and shame, they often go hand in hand, as these two have been indoctrinated deep within our female system for thousands of years. It runs so deep that we are not even consciously aware of it anymore, because it has been indoctrinated into us for thousands of years. We have become unconscious about it, like blind to it. But these three emotions, fear and guilt and shame, when we experience them, even unconsciously, we set into motion our survival system. And when we think, our survival mode can get triggered. When we think we are too fat or too thin or too white or too black or too old or too young or too much cellulite, or the scars from birthing a baby, too needy, too independent, like the list just goes on. All these different thoughts that we think, even like, and especially these automatic unconscious thinking, it activates shame and guilt. And with that, fear. Our body, the female body, doesn't look normal to the standards that society tells us it should look. The tricky thing with this one is that no woman fits into the standard of what society tells us women should look like. We are primed, we're all primed to feel that shame and that guilt, which then activates fear. Feeling exposed and small and unable to look at our own nakedness, let alone at someone else's, or be seen by someone else. And I want to take a closer look at shame and guilt, because there is an important difference between guilt and shame. So shame has an inward focus, a view of ourselves that is very negative, like how we look at ourselves consciously and unconsciously. And it also has to do with the fear of being judged. And guilt comes from specific or like a concrete action for which we think we are responsible. So for shame, it is the I am bad. And for guilt, it is I did something bad. Now, the one, you can change it, and the other, you can't, or you believe you can't, because you say to yourself that you are it. Now, to get rid of guilt is easy, or easier. Just saying sorry can already relieve the guilt. And for shame, you have to accept yourself and love all of you. And for most people, that is very difficult. Also, because for women, sexual shame has been indoctrinated, beaten into us for thousands of years. And it's still happening very much today on a very subliminal level, even in our society. It is so ingrained into our system, into the deepest parts of our subconscious mind, that it feels very much like a part of our deepest self, that you cannot even imagine yourself without it. You're not even recognizing it as shame. And that's really crazy. And how many women I speak to every single day that have never even looked at their own vulva, the outer part of your sexual organ, feeling shame about that part of their body, feeling disgusted by it even. And the truth is that most men have no problem with looking at their private parts. They look at their penises with like admiration every day. And our society is celebrating the male and punishing or telling the women off, shaming her. The sexual narrative is male-centered, and almost all research on sex and sexual function, sexual dysfunction, is done with the focus on male sexuality, not female sexuality. And female sexual health research has historically been underfunded. It's not even, it's even blocked and even erased and like put under the table. And the same for sexual education. It used to be all about fear and shame when I was in school, when I got a sexual education. Don't get pregnant, be careful for STDs, and the focus on painful births and how scary it is. All of that is taking all of the trust out of your own body, literally taking your power away from you. And the places where we did pick up something about sex and our bodies has been through media like magazines, movies, pornography, social media nowadays, which is almost all of it is a twisted version of reality, installing in us the belief that there is something wrong with us, that it is installing in us sexual shame. It's installing sexual shame in women, which can show up as, this body part of mine is too big, or it's not big enough, or this body part, its secretion is like gross, or the color isn't right, or I'm not sexual enough, or I'm too sexual. So Botox, plastic surgery, labia correction, anus bleaching, most of it all comes from the feeling of I am not good enough. I am ashamed about this part of myself and it needs to be fixed or it needs to be changed. And then we didn't even talk about the sexual acts, the positions, about female pleasure. There are so many programs installed in us, so many beliefs, and most of them are all unconscious or subconscious. And most of these patterns bring about this subconscious pattern of shame, a deep, visceral, unconscious experience of shame, which activates an inner experience of fear, of being unsafe. And all of these examples of sexual shame, they are learned. They come from somewhere. You pick them up somewhere along the way. And they can be embarrassing, they can be confusing, they can even be downright scary to look at in yourself. Also because most of it is deeply hidden within you that you don't even know it's there. But the good news is that since they were learned, thankfully, they can be unlearned. And it might not be an easy task, it doesn't happen overnight, and it takes courage to do. Now, many times women do not reach out for help when it comes to problems with intimacy. They're suffering silently. But when the fear of losing their partner because not having sex is starting to become a problem in the relationship, when that fear is bigger than the fear that comes from the shame and the guilt, that's when a woman finally reaches out for help. But I tell you, if you recognize some of this within yourself, don't wait until you are that deep into that pain of intimacy not working for you. Most of my clients that come to me that so deeply desire to enjoy sex and intimacy again with their partner, and more often than not, they have tried many different things, like from going to their gynecologist, to the general practitioner, or searching the internet, yet nothing really lifted that heavy feeling and the pressure and the anxiety around intimacy. They feel completely blocked. And what I hear a lot of times is, but I feel completely safe with my partner. And I don't understand why this is happening to me. And they don't understand that their automatic thoughts and beliefs, they trigger these three emotions that run so deeply and unconsciously through the system. And that shame and guilt and fear that is that visceral and that has been, passed down through the womb in your grandmother, because that's where you got your imprint when you were an egg cell in your mom's ovaries. And it's that subconscious survival mechanism that blocks you from being able to experience your arousal and being able to connect and surrender to your libido, which is that life force undercurrent that is always there. But being busy with like 101 thoughts in your head blocks the awareness of that life force flow completely. Now, when the system is in survival mode, there is no room for intimacy. When you are constantly trying to control and manage everything, there is no room for intimacy. When you know how to regulate your nervous system and you actively slow down and self-regulate, you give your system the green light that says, now you are safe. And then the system can open up and surrender into intimacy. When you are stressed, controlling, you're being influenced by these three emotions, and there is nothing in your system that reads intimacy or ready for intimacy, because everything is focused on survival. And we can argue around it if men and women need each other, and many women, they are, very happy in their strong and independent role. But then the inner masculine part has kind of taken over. And the power of the feminine is in softness, not weakness. I'm not saying weakness, I'm saying softness. The warm, loving, soft power of surrender, of open to receive, to gracefully lead instead of control. So if I just take one example, the story of one of the woman who worked with me, when she started working with me, she experienced so much stress in a relationship when it came to sex. Her body would completely block, and whenever her partner touched her, she would just freeze up. And this would happen like almost all of the time. And she didn't understand why. She didn't have that experience in previous relationship, and she felt so done with it. She'd been walking around with it for over 3 years, hoping that it would just get better by itself. Huh? Maybe it's just stress, maybe we just need to get some space, maybe try this or try that, and then try again, and the same thing would happen. She would freeze up again, feel blocked again in her body. And most of the time it would start with a quick thought of like, I don't know if I want this right now, maybe I'm not ready yet, should I stop? And she would end up being in her head would be working like overtime, and her body would block. She would completely freeze up. And at the same time, she also had a thought of like, I know that it could be enjoyable, or that I actually can like it, but there's something off. Something that rules over my whole system, and I don't know what it is, but something feels off. And she would have so many thoughts going on in her head, being so busy in her head that she would not be able to even focus on her partner anymore. And all of this would create feelings of guilt and shame and a fear, an inner fear, but also a deep sadness and feeling down, wanting to want it for her, for him, for herself also, and the relationship, but it doesn't work. And whatever she tried, it didn't work. Whatever they tried, it didn't work. Sometimes they found something on the internet and it helped just a few times, and then they would be back at the same pattern. She truly wanted to she deeply wanted to feel at ease when having sex, to enjoy it, to not be in her head, to experience that deep connection when it comes to intimacy, to feel peace. She did my program, she applied all the tools, the homework, all the techniques, and then she wrote me a review after that, and this is what she wrote, what she felt afterwards. She said, I started my honors program because my body would block when I wanted to be intimate with my partner. My body would freeze, which would make me feel angry, sad, frustrated, and scared. I don't understand why, because I was, and I am, deeply in love with my partner. After 3 years of hoping that it would go away on its own, I took the step to find help, and that's how I started working with Mariana. My biggest breakthrough after the 3-month program was going through all the steps in the program and finally being able to have sex again with my partner. However, I had to schedule those moments because that helped me to prepare my body for what would come. And then I was able to enjoy sexual intimacy. But my deepest desire was to also be able to experience spontaneous sex as well, and to enjoy that too. Then, after going through all the steps in the program, and I had also a few one-on-one hypnotherapy sessions with Mariana, even though I was a bit skeptic and it sometimes felt a little crazy, a few hours after one of the one-on-one sessions, one of the one-on-one hypnotherapy sessions, I found myself in the experience of having spontaneous sex and absolutely enjoying it. Also, many of the practices we received helped me a lot to bring myself back to my feelings and helped create a very deep connection between me and my partner. And as a result of that, my body not freezing up, but blocking, or not freezing up or blocking, so not blocking me, and me being able to truly enjoy sex. When I started the program with Mariana, I experienced a huge amount of stress in my body. I was not able to enjoy intimacy. I was so done with everything. I wished I would be able to smile again, to no longer have fear for intimacy and connection, and to be able to feel excitement again and connection with my partner. When I started, it felt like those desires were very, very, very far away from me. But now, 3 months later, my desires have become a reality. I can enjoy sex again. I fell in love again with my partner, and it feels as if the beginning of our relationship, but even better, because now we have a solid foundation. First, I thought I could fix my problem myself. I thought stress was the cause of my problem. I fooled myself into thinking that if I was no longer stressed, I would be able to enjoy sex again. But even in those moments that I was not experiencing stress, I was not able to have sex. I used Google to try things that may help me, and most of the time it wasn't helping, or maybe just once. I realized I was not able to fix my problem on my own. I felt comfortable and at ease with Mariana, and she helped me enormously to be able to have sex again and enjoy it in a relatively short amount of time. All of it through diving into the deep layers of this problem, becoming aware of my mindset and to change it, and the practical practices to do at home. I feel I've grown so much as a person. I feel confident, powerful, feminine, sexy, and I literally have sex with a smile on my face. A wish I never thought would become a reality. I want to thank you so much. I'm proud of myself for taking the step to start this program with you. I have never even dared to dream what it would be, that I would be able to enjoy sex again so quickly. 3 months ago, this felt just so far away. The program gave me practical tools. I was able to reach my goal. I look back on this journey with a big smile. Thank you very much for your help. That's powerful, right? That's absolutely amazing. And this is not just the story of one woman. I mean, of course, this was the story of this one particular woman, but this is a resemblance of what women experience when they do this work, of what is possible for you too. Now, we talked about all of these things, but what can you do, about this yourself to let go of these 3 emotions? So if you are meditating, just imagine that you're wanting to fly, but something holds you down. And in your imagination, you see these chains, these ropes, these anchors, these blocks, these sandbags that are tied to you. And these sandbags, these ropes, these anchors, these blocks, these chains, they represent the shame and the guilt and the fears and the thoughts and the beliefs that are related to the shame and guilt and fears. And then you look at these chains, you see and feel how they're holding you down, how you can't fly because of them. And you take a deep, full breath and you look again. And when you look again, you notice that it's not the chains that are attached to you, but it's you that are holding on to these chains and ropes. And then you consciously choose to let go of one of these chains, one of these limiting beliefs, one of these patterns. And you don't have to consciously know which one it is. It's just a conscious choice of, I'm letting this go. And you one by one let go of all these chains, all these ropes, all these sandbags that are attached to these ropes and chains. And you release it, you let it go. And you feel yourself becoming lighter and lighter, actually feeling that freedom within yourself. Now that you've let go of the shame and the guilt and the fears attached to the shame and guilt that was connected to the ropes that you were holding on to. What you do here is that you actively let your whole nervous system know that it's safe. And from that, after you've released all of that, actively do some regulating nervous system practices, which can be breathing, which can be, moving the ears. You can even Google it. There are so many practices out there that you can do to regulate your nervous system. But one of the key things is to actively slow down, allowing yourself and giving yourself permission for pleasure and creating that safe space for yourself to step into your soft feminine power. And then flow, sensuality, surrender, openness, playfulness, it can have space in your reality. And when you do, your life will just overflow with magic.